can you run 4 massive 15-inch glass cockpit displays in native VR resolution without tanking your frame rates or touching a single zoom button? Today we're gonna look at the Airbus A220, and I'm doing that by using the Pimax Crystal Light, which is a headset which is a super nice one, which I got for validation purposes thanks to Pimax. So thanks Pimax for providing it. As you can see, I switched on the batteries of the aircraft and you can directly see the screens showing up. Not all of them, but a few of them. And one of the cool things I think is from this aircraft is that everything is razor sharp. And I tuned down the performance settings, or the graphics settings, even to medium. So it's not even, I would say, the highest settings like ultra. No, simply using the medium settings to run this aircraft. Also on the top of the cockpit you can see a lot of those nice buttons and switches. Also the description around those boxes is again super sharp. That makes it really easy to fly this aircraft, at least from bottom perspective. Because the challenging part of course is learning this new aircraft, because this A220 has been released now, I would say I think 2 weeks back, and it always takes some time for you to learn the aircraft. So we're skipping ahead a little bit further, and as you can see I already progressed a lot. Because now the center screens are, I would say, turned on, as well as the co-pilot screens. The nice thing is that you can still manage this aircraft using the smaller screen, which is in front of the pilot, but also you can decide to move to the center screen in the central console if you prefer that. Both the, let's say, center screen as well as the left screen from the pilot are kind of connected to each other, especially the co-pilot part. If I change some things, you will directly see it reflected on the right part of the co-pilot side in the center pane. This, say, screen allows you to, for example, configure the performance settings, look at the flight plan, look at the route, and do a lot of other things. This is what I found. I would say I was a little bit overwhelmed by all the options, and I needed to do some research to make sure that that works correctly. The nice thing about this is that it also contains the option to import SimBrief flight plans. For that you need to activate the second flight plan and then simply promote it to be the primary flight plan. This is super nice, and a super nice option which I always value if developers are adding this to their aircraft, because this makes it as realistic as possible. Beside the options in the main screen, the tablet also has some, I would say, SimBrief options, but I will showcase that a little bit further in this video. Then in the center you will find a lot of controls, right? So if we look at it, we can see the flaps, we can see the speed brake, we can see the throttles, but also a lot of buttons which you can use to change the radio systems. Those are, I would say, really small buttons, but still with VR you can see that they're, I would say, razor sharp. You can still read what the text says. Now let's look at the EFB, the electronic flight bag. It contains a lot of tools. One of those tools is to import the SimBrief flight plan, which allows you to quickly analyze the plan. But I do think the most valuable tools are those tools where you can calculate, for example, your takeoff performance and your landing performance. There are easy buttons which allows you to pull information from the FMS, and then you can also send back data to the FMS. One thing I want to call out is that you sometimes need to press that option twice, because sometimes it does not sync it initially. You of course need to be in the correct view, so let me switch the view by pressing those buttons, and then I can go to the performance button, and there you will see that the values are there. This allows you to then configure the flaps correctly, configure the other settings correctly before you take off. Now let's continue with the startup process, because we're almost ready for takeoff. You can see that the engines are already running, or at least they are being started, and you can see me checking off items manually on the checklist. But the cool thing about this aircraft that it automatically updates the checklist for some of the items. If you, for example, switch on a setting or off a setting, it will automatically reflect it in the checklist, which is, I think, a really nice add-on, which I didn't see a lot yet with other aircrafts. Now everything is ready, let's get start taxiing. So we already got the approval to get start taxiing, and I was already a little bit, let's say, hesitated to see, okay, hey, what will the performance do? Because you can see several other aircrafts are there, and yes, I'm using FSLTL to inject aircrafts. And what you'll see is that the performance is still good. Look at how it works, right? You can simply look from left to right without any stuttering. This is of course super nice, and again I'm gonna mention it, I lowered down the quality to medium because when I set it to ultra, for some reason with Flight Simulator 2024 sim update number 6, something has changed. I'm not sure what, but it has a higher performance impact. I'm not sure if I'm the only one, but this is something I observed. I'm also wondering, what did you observe? Feel free to let me know via the comment box below this video. You can see that taxiing goes pretty smooth, also the signs, I can read them pretty clearly. But of course we're reviewing this aircraft, not the signs of the airport. We're taking off from, I would say, a nice airport, right, somewhere in France. And that's the airport which is very close to the Asobo office. But also very close to the factories of where this Airbus is being created. Or at least some part of it that being created. You can see I can nicely look left and right without any, I would say, stutters or something happening. Now this of course is really cool. It's during the day, you can see some clouds. So also clouds could have a negative impact on your performance. But overall it goes pretty well. So we're gonna skip ahead a bit and let's see what we can else test to see how this aircraft is performing in Flight Simulator 2024. One of the things which I wanted to test is, okay, are those, I would say, buttons and signs readable in the aircraft when you're moving to the evening hours? You can see I switched off the, I would say, sunlight, and we're now into the night hours. This of course gives you another, I would say, experience, but based on my testing and also based on using the Pimax Crystal Light, I would say it was an immersive experience, right? I really thought, okay, hey, this is so super cool. Especially when we're coming closer to the runway, which we're gonna use for takeoff, you will see those lights all being switched on. That really is the feeling that you say, okay, hey, this is why I'm using Flight Simulator with VR, because it is really a next experience. Because it's really a next level experience when using VR compared to when using it 2D. In 2D it's impressive, well, wait until you see it with 3D. You can see the signs are also super clear. I can look at the screen. I can easily move my headset, again, without any stuttering. So although this is a super complex aircraft with a lot of options, you do see that it doesn't cause a major impact when using the medium settings, and with the medium settings it still looks super cool. Imagine that if you've got, I would say, an even more powerful graphic card, for example the 5090, which is crazy expensive, you might be able to even, I would say, turn on ultra settings for everything. I'm also wondering, what are your settings if you're flying VR? Let me know via the comment box below. I made a small jump, and what you can see is already the runway which we're gonna use for takeoff. Besides the lights around us, we can see the runway. And as mentioned already, this is why you should consider to move to VR. With 2D it's impressive, but with 3D it's even more impressive. You can see that still the aircraft behaves perfectly. We can still, I would say, gain, I would say, pretty decent, I would say, frame rate, above 40 frames per second. I know that some people might say, hey, we want to have more, but 40 frames, 45 frames, that's what I saw on average. I didn't add them to the recording, but I will do next time, I will promise you. So we're gonna do the final checks before we're gonna take off. I'm already gonna warn you, because I record this audio a little bit later than flying, this is not the best takeoff. So have fun, say, seeing me try to take off with the A220. It is definitely, I would say, not something which I'm really proud of. But hey, let's have a look. So I will kind of, say, let you listen to the engine sound, because that's amazing.
B1.
So we're airborne, and as I already mentioned, it is not the best takeoff. I'm 100% sure about, and probably some people will, let's say, start laughing, will make some comments. Well, feel free to do so. I'm fully aligned with you. Now you can see that I can still use the headset really easy, can move easily around without causing any stutter. And this is even with injecting aircrafts, which I would say I kind of chose a, let's say, pretty safe setting, but still enough traffic to get some more, let's say, interaction with some other pilots. Unfortunately, during the recording of this video, there was something wrong with HC, which didn't work well, but hey, that's what they can happen. Now, as you can see, the aircraft also has an autopilot, and the easiest way I've figured out to manage it is by using the mouse, because then you don't have to take off your headset. Of course, there are those nice devices, for example from Wing Control or Wing Sim, or I say there are have so many names, or some other vendors like Moza, which also recently released some cool new hardware to manage all those buttons. And to manage those buttons, you really need to train your muscle memory, because you really need to have that headset, or you really need to have that hardware in front of you, and then simply, say, train your brains so that you know when to push which button and where those buttons are. For the mouse, that's relatively easy because you can see it being reflected in the cockpit. For example, when using the MCDU or when using a joystick controller, it might be a little bit harder, but I do still think that it's possible to do that. But there are, of course, also other options. Like, for example, controlling the aircraft using audio. If you're curious about which tool I'm talking, then keep an eye on my channel, because I will soon release a tool which I was using already for some time for validation purposes to control the aircraft using my voice. So we did fly a while using the A220 from Synaptic and iniBuilds, and I must say I'm really impressed. I know that they're working hard to resolve a lot of issues which people are encountering, and keep reporting those issues to them, but be always nice to them, right? They are working crazy hard to resolve these issues. If you want to log quality feedback, then consider using some AI tool to, say, rewrite your text. So you make sure that if you're providing feedback, it is constructive feedback, including the steps how to reproduce the issue, because that will help them resolving their issues. Again, I want to thank Pimax for providing the headset which I used for recording this video. And if you think, hey, I also want to have that Pimax headset because I also want to use VR, then have a look at the description of this video, because there's a nice discount code for you where you can get the headset against a reduced price. Here ends this review. I hope you liked it, and I hope to see you back next time.